friends, Dr. Raja Gopal Raghunathan. Dr. Raj is a professor of marketing at the McCombs School of Business at the University of Texas, Austin, where he relies on themes from psychology, behavioral science, decision theory, and marketing to explain consumption behavior. He also studies the impact that people's judgments and decisions have on their own happiness and fulfillment. His very successful online course, which incidentally I'm also a part of and on my last week of, named A Life of Happiness and Fulfillment, has over 3,40,000 students so far, and the number is steadily growing. His book titled If You're So Smart, Why Aren't You Happy? Was released in the US, UK, and India in 2016. Dr. Raj, super kick to have you on Life Begins at 40. Thank you so much, and I feel honored. Dr. Raj, engineering from BITS Pilani, MBA from IIM Kolkata, and PhD from New York University. And today, a professor in the US, yet contributing to your own country in a meaningful way. Would you like to tell us a little about your journey?
Sure, yeah. Actually, when you say all those things, it looks like a pretty impressive resume, right? I mean, like all of these are pedigree schools, BITS Pilani, IIM Calcutta. And I like the way that you pronounce Calcutta. You know, the way that I pronounce is, of course, like most non-Bengalis, but we call it Kolkata, all right? So that's awesome. I would say that overall, I was very, very lucky to be brought up in a family that emphasized education, gave me a lot of not just physical support in terms of, enough food and basic needs, but also a lot of psychological and emotional support. And so I think that is very, very important. And people don't realize the extent to which luck plays a part in your life's outcomes, be it good or bad. And so I feel very grateful to have had these series of experiences. And at some level, any experience is an experience, and there's no need to judge it as positive or negative. But I do feel that some of these experiences lead to more positive emotions, more kinds of successes that, are not to be scoffed at. Even conventional kind of, access to resources like money, control or status and so on. And so I feel very lucky to have gone through these set of institutions, great institutions. And I'm very, very lucky right now to be a professor at the University of Texas. Like you mentioned, I come back to India quite often. So far, it's been at least once every year and often 2-3 times every year to try and contribute in any small way that I can. I teach at the Indian School of Business. I'm also a member of the governing board of Raj Raghunathan, which was an initiative started by Shri Shivraj Singh Chauhan, ex-chief minister. I guess he's chief minister back now, right, of Madhya Pradesh. Anyway, so it's been a fascinating journey, and the reason why I've managed to kind of contribute back, I think, is because largely luck, but I really am very focused on the topic of happiness, and it seems to be in vogue right now. People are very interested in the topic, and with Raj Raghunathan, for example, the initiative is to enhance the happiness of the citizens of Madhya Pradesh. So people are very interested in the topic, not only at the country level, at the individual level, at the organizational level, at the level of parents and relationships, at the level of retirement, all kinds of things. And so I feel very honored and privileged to be in this position right now.
And how did this transition into a formal course on happiness?
Yeah, so back in 2009, when I was very interested in teaching a course on happiness, I didn't see a lot of courses, especially in business schools, being offered on the topic. Okay, and so I had to sit down and put the material together. And the reason why I even thought of offering a course on happiness is because of some personal observations that I'd made. In short, that there's very little correlation between conventional success, right? That is money, fame, power, etc., and what you might call life success, how happy you are, how meaningful your life is, and so on. And so I felt that if I were a student, I'd be very interested in this topic. And I asked my students at that time whether they'd be interested, and they all said yes. And so I went to the dean's office and I put this syllabus together. And initially, I think there was a little bit of a shock in the sense that, you don't associate happiness with business schools, right? I mean, you associate making money, marketing, finance, etc., not really happiness. They were shocked. But, the really good thing about being in a business school is that they do believe in a free market, so to speak, So who are they to judge the merit or demerit of a course? So long as it's in the ballpark. If I offered a course on astronomy or something like that, they'd probably shoot it down. I mean, definitely shoot it down. But happiness is kind of like social sciences. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility to teach a course like this. So they said, look, I mean, you can offer it. They didn't say it, but I think they were thinking that our hunch is that no one's going to be interested in this. And so they told me that if it doesn't fill up, basically we'll give you a couple of years to run with it. But let's say that even in the third year, you only get 20, 25 students in the class when the limit is 35, right? Then you're probably going to have to drop the course. And I said, yeah, that's fair. I started offering it thinking that, okay, at least I get a run of 2 years, that'll satisfy me and I'll have dug deeper into the topic and I'm very personally interested in it. But it's been 10 years, Sanjana, since I started teaching it. And not only do I continue to teach it there, it's every year I have a waiting list, okay? It fills up to more than 45. Actually, 35 is the class limit, but we allow up to 45 people and more than 45 people apply. And not only that, I'm also invited, like I said, to the Indian School of Business to teach it. And, all of these opportunities like TEDx talks and TED Talks and things like that. And also, workshops and talks at organizations and stuff like that. So I'm really, really grateful for how things have evolved.
I feel honored. Me, all my life, happiness has been a goal, something that I had to achieve. So can it be a perpetual state, and would that be called the pursuit of happiness? If yes, what would you say is the recipe for happiness?
Yeah, so I don't know if it can be a perpetual state. It's like health. Can you perpetually be healthy? Probably not. But it's better than health in the sense that at least it is not guaranteed to go down with time. With health, I think that you will die one day. One will die one day, and physically systems fail and so on. And so we know that after a while, after my age, especially 50. It starts to deteriorate, and you can kind of like stem the tide a little bit, but by and large, that it's going to be a downward sloping curve, and you got to be okay with it. You got to reconcile yourself. But with happiness, I think that even though there's no guarantee that you can sustain it, there's no guarantee that it'll be high, but I think the aim should be that you try and sustain it. And you were asking me about the determinants of happiness, and I think that it's impossible to be happy, in my opinion, Sanjana, and particularly sustain it if you're not feeling healthy. If you're not feeling at the level of your cells a sense of healthfulness. So I think that basically means then that you need to have slept well, you need to have eaten good food, not junk. You needed to have exercised a little bit, because I think it's very, very important. So that, I think, is the foundation of a happy life, leading a healthy lifestyle. Beyond it come other kinds of needs or other kinds of factors that contribute to your happiness. Obviously, as human beings, we are highly social as a species. We want love, especially from our close ones, and then we need some sense of accomplishment. I call it mastery needs. Then you need some level of autonomy, which is where money comes in very handy. That if you have money, you can choose what you want to do. You can outsource your chores that you don't enjoy doing. I don't know if you like to do dishes, for example. I don't. Okay. So if you have money, then you can kind of outsource it to somebody else. Who does that job, and things like that. So I call these MBA needs. So you have the foundation of a healthy lifestyle, and then you have the pillars. The three kind of pillars: MBA, mastery, belonging, and autonomy. And then on the very top, the crowning glory is your set of your mindset, the set of attitudes that you carry. And if you have what I call an abundance mindset, a mindset of thinking that I have enough, in fact, I have more than enough. How can I help other people out? Rather than constantly thinking that I don't have enough money, I don't have enough love, I don't have enough mastery, and so on. Then you're going to be scarcity oriented, and that's not very good for your happiness. Okay. And you might argue that, well, I need to reach a certain level of access to wealth and mastery and love and everything before I feel like I have enough. And that's partly true, which is why I think it's important to meet people's basic needs. But after that, really, I mean, it's an internal story or narrative. There's no objective milestone after which you suddenly get permission to have an abundance mindset. You have to tell yourself, look, I have more than enough in terms of, food, clothing, shelter, all the basic needs. And if not now, if I don't convince myself now that I have more than enough, then there may never be a point. And you could be a billionaire and still think you don't have enough. So you got to kind of turn the switch around inside your mind and say, okay, happiness is an inside job at this point. I have all the kind of external things that I need to be happy. How can I internally fine tune myself in order to lead a happier life?
COVID has brought in a new life order. And how do you think we can practice happiness in times of crisis?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that the short answer is I think you can do two or three things. Okay, one is that lead as healthy a lifestyle as you can, particularly in these moments. When there's already so much stress outside, you can't afford to put stress on the inside in terms of your physical body. So get enough sleep. That in turn means going to sleep at the same time every day, practicing some regular routines and so on, exercise and eat good healthy food. The second thing that you can do is lean on other people. We are in it together. A lot of other people are going through the same kind of problem. So rather than bottle it all up within yourself, find one or two people with whom you feel like you can share all your darkest concerns. And I think you'll be surprised to find that they actually like it, that you're vulnerable like that. We like to see vulnerability in other people because it makes them human. We all go through suffering, and there is a concept called common humanity, and the suffering is what bonds us together. Okay, not the kind of high points in our life, even though those are great too. But really, what connects us at a very deep level is the pain that we all go through. So share it with others. And perhaps the most important tip I have is to adopt what might be called a surrender mindset. The mindset of saying that, look, I'm not the wisest, I'm not the most smart, most intelligent. I can't quite figure out what the future holds for me. Okay. But I'm sure that whatever happens, there is going to be something positive that comes out of it. There's at least going to be a silver lining to every dark cloud. And let me focus on what those positive things might be because of the negative outcomes that are happening right now. So if you're stressed out due to COVID, maybe your job security is no longer guaranteed. Maybe you've even been fired, but maybe something good is going to come out of it. Okay. Out of all the people who got fired right now, I'm sure a certain subset of those are going to emerge as billionaires in a few years from now. Okay. What are they doing that's different? Okay. They're probably kind of looking out for doors of opportunity that open up. Maybe they think of this as being exactly the thing that they needed in order to pursue their passions and their dreams. Okay. So why not use this time productively that way? And rather than, feeling a huge sense of self-pity and, why me, poor me, it always happens to me, change the story and tell yourself, okay, this is what I needed, a kick in my butt to get off the couch.
Women have traditionally been a happier lot. But as I was kind of doing my research for our discussion, I came across a study that says that despite them being growing overall, the happiness levels have decreased substantially. And what can we do to still be the happier lot?
Okay, first of all, I don't know where you're getting that conclusion from, that women are happier. I want to share it with me. Maybe you can do it over email. From research that I know, women are in fact the less happy. They have lower levels of self-esteem and in general are more prone to unhappiness overall. And one of the big reasons for that is, of course, the lower access to financial resources around the world. Okay, in certain countries, you might have women being a little bit happier, but overall around the world, they report lower levels of happiness. And that's because in the vast majority of the countries around the world, women are still subjugated. Men still have control and over resources. They have greater sense of autonomy. Now, that being said, even in the countries in which women hold more positions of power and there's greater emancipation for women, greater freedom for them to move around and do the things that they want to do, you still don't necessarily see a huge bump in happiness, okay? Which is maybe what you're pointing to in the second part of your question. And that is because I think that, there's a two-part answer to it, okay? First of all, I think the assumption that just having access to resources and having greater status and power is going to get me a lot of huge bump in happiness is not necessarily true. We've seen a lot of studies where, more money, more power, more fame, more freedom in terms of status and all that doesn't necessarily mean more happiness. I think that you again need that internal fine tuning of your mind to adopt an abundance mindset. That's one part of the story. That explains why the bump hasn't been that great. But why is it actually not much at all? Well, I think a large part of that has to do with even though women have greater access to all these resources and all that, especially during COVID time, but even otherwise, the problem is that society expects women to fulfill other roles that they've traditionally fulfilled, like, for example, the role of a mother, okay, role of a caretaker, and so on. And so what you see is even the women who are working in a corporate kind of sector, right, they come back home and they are the ones who are held responsible for putting food on the table, right? Not in a kind of metaphorical sense, in a literal sense, cooking the food or at least arranging for it to be cooked. They're the ones, maybe because they're the ones who carry the baby in their stomachs, right? They're the ones who are held responsible for the kind of emotional well-being of their children, okay? So what has happened is the women are stretched thinner than they were before. So even though they have more access to resources and more freedom and all that, they're still not as happy, I think, at least partly, if not mainly, because there are too many balls up in the air for them, so that's a huge cause of stress. And so that's happening too. And, a lot of men aren't accepting women, the emancipation of women. And so men aren't giving the women what the women rightfully deserve, like love and, a companionship and all that, because the men are saying, hey, you used to take care of us and you used to nurture us and you were the kind of, fairer sex, so to speak, right? More nurturing sex. And now you want what we have. And I think there's a little bit of that, I don't know, unhappiness or even anger among a lot of men. And so you see a lot of relationships failing as a result of it. So this is, anytime there is a big change like that, you're going to see disturbance, right? And I think that that is reflected in the happiness of women not going up so much. And for that matter, I think that men aren't that happy either, okay? Especially during this COVID times. So I think you just have to kind of, go through this phase, and then hopefully in the future things will improve. We'll see.
You have 2 young children. What have they taught you about happiness?
Yeah, I mean, this is almost a cliche, right? I think that what children teach you is the importance and the capacity that we all have to be in the moment. Okay. And my children are now teenagers. My son is almost 16 and my daughter is 12. So she's not technically a teenager, but I think she's a little bit precocious. She's managed to reach the teenage years, even though she's not yet quite a teen. And they do teach you the capacity that all of us have to appreciate whatever is going on right now. So they're innocent in that sense, and they probably don't kind of calculate all the downstream consequences of every action that they take and what they say and so on. But in that also lies a certain joy and certain positive set of things. So that is one thing for sure that they've taught me. The other thing that they've taught me is to prioritize enjoyment and happiness, okay, over other extrinsic rewards. So when they choose what to eat, for example, or when they choose what movie to watch, they're not really that bothered by, okay, what might other people think of me, or, will this be useful for me in the long run, etc. They just go for, their antennas are out for what is going to give them the maximum enjoyment and happiness, and they go for it. So they are kind of, undistracted by these other goals. That it's just a delight to have people that with whom you can communicate, share a sense of humor, and so on and so forth. So lots of different, things, positive things. The important thing, Sanjana, in my opinion, is not the quantity of time that you spend, but the quality of time. Again, this might be a bit of a cliche, but you could spend, 20 hours a day with your kids all in one room. But if you're constantly bickering and fighting and everything, that's not very good, right? So one thing that we have done during COVID that has come in really handy is that we have this huge whiteboard in our breakfast area, which is divided into 7 different rows for each day of the week and 4 columns for each of us. I have 2 kids and me and my wife. And so we just kind of put down the activities that we want everybody to do a particular day on that whiteboard. And we just, there are 2 rules. One is that as the person who's writing down an activity that you would like everybody to engage in, you cannot choose things that are more than 3 hours long. Okay, it has to be max 3 hours long. So it could be a hike, it could be a game of tennis, it could be a movie, whatever, but it has to be 3 hours or less,
Okay.
or broken into 2 parts. Okay, and the second is that you have to give everyone else 24 hours notice. Okay, you can't just say, okay, right now my activity starts. Okay, it's got to be at least a 24-hour notice, which gives people enough time to look at their calendars and say, oh, I have this class, I can't do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And from the participants' perspective, there are 2 rules again. One is that you have to participate in all the activities. You can't say, no, I don't want to do this, I want to skip this. And not just that, you have to be 100% enthusiastic. Okay, which is, of course, difficult to judge because you don't know inside what they're feeling, but at least externally, you got to act as if you're, you have to act in a way that others can't figure out you're not enthusiastic. Okay, because if you're not enthusiastic, then you lose your turn. Okay, you can't propose an activity next time around. And it's worked really, really well for us, especially during the lockdown. Not only have we come to do activities together, be they playing board games or, like I said, going for a hike or playing tennis and so on, but it's also revealed the other people's kind of interest. And you would think that you know everybody in your family really well, right? Mm-hmm. And at some level you do, but the depth to which my daughter was into ballet, she learns dancing, and at least me, maybe my wife knew more, but I just thought, okay, she's just going dancing, it's some kind of Western dance, and that's it. But she really is so theoretically knowledgeable about ballet and its origins and so on, and so she made this presentation to us, and then also made us kind of do a few moves, and it looks so easy when you see it, and you thought, yeah, I can twirl around, what's the big deal? But you discover that you're not as coordinated as you thought you were. So things like that, it's had so many positive things. So we spend enough time, and I think we spend touch wood so far, quality time together. Of course we have our negative moments, but by and large it's been good.
Wonderful. So some insights into Dr. Raj, and some quick fire questions. Your favorite city in the US besides the one that you live in?
That's a great question. I would have to say Chennai. Okay, and it might be a little bit of a letdown for some people. That the city, it's not really kind of on anyone's map, except of course Chennaiites, right? Mm-hmm. But it just makes me feel at home. And I grew up all over India, so it's not as if I spent a lot of time there. But I think I spent enough time there, especially during some of the formative years. And I would say it's Chennai.
Okay. And fill in the blank, Dr. Raj is ...
Is aspiring to be lighthearted and joyful all the time.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go in?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would like to go to the late 60s and 70s, the kind of rock and roll, flower power era. I have a certain romanticized vision of that era. People were kind of chilled out and listening to really, really good music. I think that period music is what I like best. And so, maybe go to Woodstock and things like that. So that's what I would like to do.
And your favorite TV show?
That's a great question. I'd say that one of my favorites, maybe not quite most favorite, I'd have to think a little more about it, but one of my favorites is Seinfeld. I don't know if you've seen Seinfeld.
Yes, of course I have. Your favorite ice cream?
My favorite ice cream is either butterscotch when I'm in India, so somewhat surprisingly, I suppose for Indians, you don't get butterscotch here in the US, okay, or not easily.
Really?
Yeah, you can ask your son if he found it, if he likes it. Otherwise, here in the US, I just like, again, somewhat boring, but plain vanilla with some chocolate sauce on top and some sprinkling of nuts, crushed nuts.
Wonderful. What do you think is the best age?
Best age? Okay. I'd say somewhere in your late 30s, early 40s, probably.
Would you want to live forever?
No, but I also am of the belief that I anyway will live forever, kind of a thing, but not in this body or something like that. But, I just believe in some form of reincarnation. To me, it just seems to make sense that everything is recycled and there's law of conservation of energy. And so I don't know if I believe in a single soul, that is Raj's soul, but I do believe in some kind of um, reuse or reincarnation, I suppose, of who you are, what your life is. And so I'm not too scared of death, in other words. That said, I don't know if death were to stare me in the eye, how I would be, but yeah, dancing,
And
but it's not necessarily graceful or anything like that.
two hobbies.
Traveling. Okay, traveling is a major hobby, and the second hobby, I guess, would be sports in general.
What is the closest thing to real magic for you?
Closest thing to real magic. There have been many experiences in my life where I've hung out with really close friends and my family, and we have connected in a way where it seems like, although we are separate in terms of our physical entities, we are one in terms of our kind of emotional, psychological state. Okay, there is a word that actually is used to capture that. It's and I'm going to butcher this, I think, in terms of pronunciation, but entitativity. Okay, it's EITAVITY. Okay, you can Google it. So it's this idea that we are all one, even though we are separate. Okay, so I think a really great image for this entitativity is when we saw the very first image from space, outer space of the Earth. Okay, so before that, we just kind of envisioned the Earth, in a certain way in our heads, I suppose. If one were to go outside of the Earth and take a picture of it, and maybe most of us thought, okay, it would look pretty green because there's so many trees. I can see a lot of trees around me and things like that. But there's this blue, beautiful planet, and the idea that we're all in it together on this planet. We're all separate, but we're all in this together. So I've had lots of experiences like that, and those are precious.
So, lastly, two things that no one knows about you.
Yeah, so here's the thing, Sanjana, there's nothing in my life that absolutely nobody knows about. Okay, there are certain things that some people don't know, or many people don't know, out of choice, because I haven't told them, or I don't want to tell them those things. But everything in my life, down to the very last detail, at least somebody knows about them. So I'm not a very secretive person, in other words, and I actually think that's a lucky position to be in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raj, for giving me your time and for agreeing to do this for me and all my viewers. I'm so grateful that you're sitting in Texas. I know you have a very tight schedule and you've taken the time.
No worries at all, Sanjana. I think it was awesome. A very unusual set of questions, especially towards the end.